Welcome to Aha Moments, the podcast where we explore the breakthroughs and insights that shape our professional journeys. Whether you're a new teacher finding your way or a seasoned educator seeking fresh ideas, we've got you covered. In each episode, we dive into the hearts and the minds of our very own Pinellas County teachers and share challenges, triumphs, tips, and strategies. Get ready to be inspired, learning something new, and experience your very own aha moments. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Aha Moments. Today, we have a very special episode where we are diving deep into data, one of my favorites. We will explore different sources of data, how to use it to inform instruction, and the impact that this has not only on student achievement, but also on engagement. I am your host, Robin Ford, and I'm joined today by my co-host.
I'm Heather Wynn. I am a literacy coach and English 1 teacher at Northeast High School.
Thank you for joining us, Heather. We are also very lucky to be joined by these two data-driven educators. Can you both introduce yourself?
I'm Stephanie Steller. I teach third grade math and science at Ponce de Leon Elementary.
And I'm Sarah Gracina. I am the math coach at Ponce de Leon Elementary.
Awesome. Thank you for both for joining us.
Sarah, can you give us a quick overview of data sources that you use? So we use a ton of different things at our school. So obviously we have the regular performance matters type things. We have our benchmarks. We have our modules. We also use exit tickets that we find. We either create them or we look at by looking at the standards and the achievement level descriptors, or we use whatever curriculum we have at the time, like Reveal or anything like that. And then we also obviously have our STAR testing for K1-2, and then we have our FAST testing for 3-4-5.
Okay, that's a lot of data.
That's a lot.
All right, we want to talk about the different specific parts of those coming up. But Stephanie, so what does the process of gathering the data and reviewing it look like from the perspective of a classroom teacher?
So when we start off at the beginning of the year, Sarah typically comes to us as the math coach with the PM data from the previous school year. And so we are able to start off running with our small groups right away. So as your teaching processes, you're able to have, your kids with you. When we take PM1 data from FAST, it's typically not super helpful in the way of planning small groups since it's a summative assessment. So our next big piece of data for the year is to use benchmark 1. But within our core instruction, we still use our exit tickets, which we plan for on a daily basis. So we typically teach with a mini lesson and then send the kids off to do their independent practice, Dreambox, whatever, and then you're able to pull that exit ticket group right away within the core so you're not taking up time for intervention as well.
That is so fantastic. I love that you use exit ticket data that way. So, Sarah, when you said, we're saying that you pull the PM3 data and you use that to get your groups to start with. Can you explain that process a little bit on what you do with the PM3 data from the previous year?
Yeah.
How that informs how you're going to group the kids?
So with third grade, it's a little different because that's their previous year would be second grade, which is their STAR data. And they just moved it to where it's the state information. So we group them by their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s and things like that. And then the other grades, obviously, they already have their buckets and things like that. So we know who are the L25 kids. We know who, really need that push and things like that. So I just kind of take that information from the year prior and I'm like, hey, let's just start off with these groups and see where they lead. But the exit ticket and the topic assessment data, that's kind of where we dive deeper into it because that changes the day-to-day. If there's a misconception that you can see happening throughout the entire class, that's going to adjust her lesson the next day. Or if there's just a couple kids that are making a teeny tiny mistake, then you can jump in and just fix that right away.
So can we go into that a little bit more? So you're using the exit ticket, you're giving that on the day, and then you're going to inform and they're going to make changes the next day. Mm-hmm. Can you give a specific example of what that might look like?
So with multiplication, we just, finished up multiplication and division. So we'll do a mini lesson. We're an AVID school. So we do our annotated notes, which we plan out ahead of time. And so we'll come down to the carpet and we are mini lesson has our annotated notes integrated within the lesson, and you have planned out questions as you're doing the notes. And then once the kids finish that, then they'll do their exit ticket and they'll give it to you. It's typically 1 or 2 questions. A lot of time we get that information from Reveal, since that's the ready-made,
For this, I don't know, can you explain what Reveal is?
Oh, Reveal is the elementary math curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
So even though our lesson typically doesn't come from Reveal, we do look at the levels and borrow our exit ticket questions from there. And then, so you'll be able to grade it right then. I'm like, okay, this kid's good. This kid needs to be pulled. Or like sometimes if it's a more difficult concept, I'm like, I'm medium low. But depending on the skill, and then they'll go to their seats and you'll be able to pull your exit ticket groups, which sometimes we'll use for exit ticket groups. Sometimes we'll use Reveal, stuff like they have the digital lessons. They also have review questions.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll be able to pull it right then and hopefully clear up any misconceptions. But then we recheck it once they've done the unit assessment to see who needs to be pulled.
Thank you. That's great. So you said PM1 data is not that helpful. I've heard that quite often. So we're getting PM2 data. So then how do you move from your PM1 data through your PM2 data?
So that one, I have like a list and we go through it a lot. But basically what we look for is, did our kids make a bucket jump? Were they making growth? And then what's really nice about our school is we're very data driven, like as a whole. So it's not just me and her looking at her data, but it's the ESE teachers, it's the ESOL teachers, it's everybody that has hands in on that child. And we make it so that it's celebratory. So we might have only moved up a teeny bit, but you still had growth. What other things can we move now? And with math, it's difficult because it starts out brand new, all information, versus reading, it just kind of cycles through. So you're expecting them to be higher at the beginning and things like that. With math, if they're a 1.1 and then a 1.3, that's okay because they're still hitting that 50th percentile mark. Whereas like now in PM2, they should be about 2.1, 2.2. So we can see that. And if we're seeing those kinds of jumps, then we know that they're getting what they need from their core instruction.
So then what do you do if they're below their target of 2.1?
So our students are stakeholders in their data. We are, like she said, we're a very data-driven school, and like we have created a culture where data can be discussed with openly. So we have, for not only like topic assessments, but also for like their PM assessments, a lot of teachers do like a clip-up ceremony where we have all the buckets, and it starts off at the beginning of the year. This is what you got. Like, that's awesome. Like, this is where we want to be at the beginning of the year. Like, we teach them that. Like, the students are fine. So I know in my class, in my teaching partners class, we'll do a clip-up ceremony and like, oh, you started at 1.3 and now you're a 3 and you went up this many points. Or, oh, you started at a 1.2 and you're still a 1.2, but look how many points you went up. And all the kids clap for each other. They celebrate each other. Like,
how do you make that meaningful to them, though?
I think it's just like it's
the culture.
Yeah,
of
the
school.
growth mindset.
Everybody, our principal discusses, like, she will put a desk in the hallway, and while kids are waiting outside the classroom to come in the classroom at 8:30, she has her data binder and she will pull all the kids, like, over the course of weeks and months, obviously, to get through all the kids. But she has a personal conversation with every student throughout the year of what their data is and celebrates them in one way or another.
And I think to add on to that, like, what's also important, like, within the daily lessons, if they don't get their exit ticket or if they don't do well in their module, or topic assessments or anything like that, what we do is we dive deeper into like their actual physical work that they're doing. And so we might see like a tiny mistake and be like, look, you've got all of this. You just made a mistake in this tiny piece. And it's having that growth mindset, like, especially with PM2, because a lot of stuff they don't know, they've never seen it before. So they like shut down and they're like, oh no, I've never seen this. But you have to create that kind of growth mindset culture where you might not know this yet, but we're going to get there. And the only way that we can get there is if you help me help you. I need to see your work. I need to have, honest conversations where you're trying your best and you're letting me know if you're really not understanding something, and then we can help you get to where you need to be.
And Sorry. I was going to say, also, we are a Title I school. We have a lot of students that come from difficult backgrounds. And I know specifically, I have students that prefer small groups. And so just teaching them at the beginning of the year and like those students, coming back year to year, by this point, they know like a small group is not a punishment. Like some of them prefer it.
Will you talk to me about what data chats look like for an elementary student? Like in your classroom, what is that? Is there like a formal data chat process that you're having?
For me, it's different depending on the teacher. Okay. For me, it's typically like we just had a science assessment on Friday. So on Monday, I just kept them all. They were doing their independent work on their computers, and I just came by like real quick, and I was like, oh, look, like this is what you got. And it was fighting friction. That was a really good concept for the kids to boost their ego. So good job, people that plan out how that works. So like most of the kids were proficient at that point. So it's just a quick like, oh, look, this is what you got. I'm so proud of you. Look, this is the highest score of your year. Oh, you got 20 points lower than your average. Like it's 2 questions. So I'll say, I noticed while you were taking this test and this is what we can do next time, or what do you think we can do next time? Asking them, just making sure they have a stake in it.
So can I just dive a little deeper on that? Like when you're doing the data test, so you said that you put the students off to their independent work, and then you are going to walk around and have a conversation, maybe even just like a mini chat with them on how are they doing that. How are you physically, what do you have? Do you have like their actual scores? Do you have the like a clipboard? Did you make notes of?
Yeah, like I have my folder that I do all the grades in because I'm not fancy schmancy enough to import the grades from Performance Matters to Gradebook. So I write it down.
Is my data track.
Yeah, no, I just write it down and I go around and have a mini conversation with all the kids.
Well, and the kids also have data binders, or they have data sheets. So it'll say like this was this topic, and then they can color in like their percentage that they've done, so they can see where they are too.
Yeah, I was going to ask like how granular are you getting this data? So like you're coming around and you're saying, oh, you went up 20 points, or you were static. How granular are you getting?
No, our fancy schmancy coaches give us forms at the beginning of the year for everything. We have them for math for module assessments, for science for the same, for ELA for the same. Then we have our PM ones for math and reading. And just last week, after PM2 was done, in addition to doing the clip-up ceremony, I have the form, and I had all the kids come to my back table to do an individual conferencing. I just did it instead of doing the warm-up one day. Mm-hmm. I just had them all on Dreambox while they came back to me.
So Sarah, how do you support the teachers? Like, I think she just hinted at some of the things that you do, but can you give a little bit more detail on how you're supporting Stephanie, but also your other teachers with data and...
Yeah, so I kind of deep dive into it. So that's when I'll look at the topic assessments and be like, so I pull it up from Performance Matters into an Excel sheet. And so I'll look at like each standard, because you can break it down by standard in there. And so I'll look at each standard and be like, hey, your class was really low on this one, this one, this one. These are things we probably need to reteach as a whole, or maybe just these couple of kids didn't understand this concept. So these are things that they need to do. And so they'll normally pull those kids into their intervention groups, and those are the standards that they'll hit the most as they go. And then at the end of the year, what's really nice is you can take all the assessments that they've taken and then kind of open that up in Performance Matters. And so we normally do like review at the end of the year. And so the kids will know all of their benchmarks and where they are. And so they can go to small groups based on which benchmark they need the most assistance in. And they kind of have like, independent work and things like that all set up.
Yeah. Okay, so this question's for both of you, because I think it sounds like you're going into a really individual basis with the students and their data, but there is a ongoing conflict with trying to meet the individual needs of every student and trying to keep pace with the curriculum. So if you could each kind of speak to that challenge and how you overcome it or how you deal with that.
So I think for this one, so we do a lot of planning, obviously together because I'm with them. But when we look at it, we look at the data, and what we've done is I've created a math toolkit. And so we look at everything with the achievement level descriptors, and we look at the test beforehand to see kind of what level it goes to. And then from there, we move into our lesson plans. And a lot of our lesson plans have to be scaffolded up because a lot of these kids, they don't have that base knowledge. When you have kids coming in at like 1.1s and 1.2s, they're not going to understand the concept. So we have to kind of build that into our planning based on what we know that they do know or have prior knowledge or background knowledge from.
So because we're so individualized, it makes it kind of easier in my soul to like stay on par with the curriculum, like pacing. So like I said, we kind of focus on mini lessons. And I mean, obviously you'll have those days where like your whole class will have an aha moment. And of course you're not going to wreck that. But like, that is not my day-to-day situation. We're looking for what level we want the kids to achieve at. We're planning our mini lessons based off of that. We are planning our exit tickets based off of that. And the students that don't get it, like it's, for me, I feel like it gives me more bang for my buck to be able to pull those kids that didn't understand that concept right away. That maybe just need that smaller group that, oh, I see what your misconception is right away.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably easier with math. If a subject like math,
yes,
like you're either right or you're wrong.
Yeah.
But with a topic like ELA, there's so much gray area.
Yes.
You don't really know what they don't know until they're putting it on paper and you're like, oh,
yes.
Okay, we're missing something.
But at our school, we have a co-teaching model for, we're all compartmentalized in 3, 4, and 5. And so in all the 3, 4, and 5 classes, there are 2 teachers that are co-teaching ELA. Mm-hmm. So like in my partner's class, there's my partner plus the ESOL teacher that's assigned to teaching 3rd grade ELA. So they have a co-teaching model that they work on as well. And they're able to pull double groups and assess their data as well that way.
Makes it a little bit easier to see when you got 2 people looking at it for ELA at least.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Sarah, I think this one is to you because I wanted to ask about because data can be a touchy subject. And I think that it sounds like the culture of the school is very positive and student growth focused. And I know working with adults can be a little trickier. So how, as a coach, do you balance the tough conversations around data and the reality of using data with adults, with your teachers?
So some people, it's a lot easier. So like if something's wrong in Stephanie's room, like, hey, Stephanie, I noticed this is happening. What's going on? And she's like, oh, yeah, I noticed it too. Let's fix this right away. So it's easier to have conversations with some people than others.
Sure.
And you kind of have to tread lightly in some instances. And, but when they can see it too, and you can bring that information to them, like if you have the proof or, even just by sitting in someone's room and being like, this is what's happening, this is what's not happening, like using that observational data even, it helps them to see and kind of buy in. And I think because I've been there so many years and they've seen all the things that I'm helping them with and like they're seeing that it's working, then I feel like it's a lot easier.
They trust the process more?
Yeah, that relationship has been built up over the last couple of years. Like my relationship with 3, 4, 5, because there is so much more data, is a lot better than I would say K1, 2, because they don't have as much data. So they don't, it's not as a deep connection.
Right. Can I piggyback off of that? I think it's important to not only think about data as like testing assessments, but like their data is also their attendance. Like their, what information do you have from student services? What do you have information from in focus, like with, other people at the school working with the students? And so if you're coming to me with, oh, this student has this issue. Okay, well, their mom just told me that their dad was incarcerated. And, so like that is a viable piece of data. I have a student in that situation right now that is having their ESC their IEP up for review right now. And that was something I brought up to the ESE teacher. Well, I know they're having this issue at home, and I've been seeing this issues in class. I know you've been seeing this issues in small group. Can we put something on student services in the books, like officially on their IEP, even though I've been low-key having, someone from student services talk to them infrequently? And they're like, absolutely.
Yeah, all of those pieces of data do help view them. That's one of the things I wanted to touch on also is how do you use this? And I think you started to talk about this at least on one end, but how do you use this to bring about like student culture in your classroom and engagement with the work and your engagement with your students? How's data a part of that?
It's important to view the students as a whole person. So we've had, we know when we're going to get students that have been with us for a while from challenging backgrounds, and, it's not even a discussion. It's not like a go talk to the teacher, like when you get your class roster, like, okay, tell me about this kid, tell me about this kid. We all know about each other's students. Like, I can go to Sarah, she can tell me about any student in the whole school. I can go to my assistant principal, okay, what's going to help? Like, what can I do with my personality? Because that student was assigned to me for a reason. Like, how can I vibe with them? And I meet them where they're at. Like I said, I have some students that I'll have kids at my carpet for whole group lesson and for note taking. I keep that student at their seat because it's going to be a hot mess. They're going to be worried about what every single other person is doing. And that day, whatever their mood is, they're either going to be paying attention to the lesson or they're going to be worrying about everything else but the lesson, which could get other students distracted. But this student prefers small group or individual one-on-one time, and that's fine.
Yeah, I think that speaks to another kind of data, which is qualitative data that we see every day in our classrooms, that you're measuring that all the time. I was talking to a teacher about that today where I was like, I want to talk about data, but not just quantitative. We don't have to just talk numbers. What do you see as far as engagement in your students? Like, what are you seeing as far as when they're doing the work? What does the struggle look like? How can we identify what the struggle looks like if they're not saying the words like, this is hard, or I don't understand? There's so many cues that we can look for, or even like you look at a student and you're like, oh, they're having a rough day today. I know what to expect out of that student.
And I think that goes to, so when you're looking at the PM2 data, we're looking for trends and we want to see what's happening, like where's the barrier that's happening to this learning so we can overcome it and move forward, hit the ground running in January. And so one of those, we were looking at one class in particular, and all of her quiet kids were the only ones that didn't jump a bucket or went down. And I was like, they're not engaging. Like, because I sit in there and she's my co-teach model. So how can we get those kids to talk more and have more buy-in and have those engaging conversations with their partners instead of letting their partner next to them take all the talking and then they just sit and listen? Are they really truly getting it and like making those Velcro hook connections or not? And then obviously we can see that was a trend. All of the quiet kids didn't make a bucket drop.
I absolutely love that, and I loved how you identified it and like locked it into how it was academic discourse. I was just going to ask you about any aha moments that you might have had by looking at data, and it sort of sounds like one, but if you have a better one, please share it. So we are getting to a point where we're going to wrap things up, but I would love to hear if you've had like an aha moment. Anything where you're looking at your data, looking at your students?
I mean, this year I have talked about one particular student a few times, and he started this year off with a 140 on his FAST, like the lowest he could possibly go.
I was just going to do an aside and say, that is a very low score.
I'm aware.
That was for other people.
But he only went up a couple of buckets, but he had the most growth out of all the students. And I think it's because of all the conversations that we have at our school about all of the students. Like, he's getting ready to be staffed for EBD, which I was not a big fan of because I thought it was going to give him a complex. I'm like, look how much growth he already made, but okay, look at the supports he's going to get. And when we were, getting everything ready for his IEP meeting coming up next month, and I was able to say, like, hey, even though it's EBD, like, can he get small group? Because he loves small group. And, I've already seen the trends.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Sarah, I feel like you shared yours. Do you have one?
I have one more. We actually just had, it actually was an aha moment today. We had a kid who struggles, and like I've had to test him on like the topic assessments because like he'll just rush through it and not do anything. And then I'm like, you know, you're better than this. And then I'll do it over with him. He'll get 100%. I'm like, see, you took your time. So today he had to take his fast PM2. And so he was a 3 last year. He was a 1.3 PM1. He got a 4 today.
What?
I know. And like, as you know, the ESC teachers are watching him stuff, they're noticing he's doing the strategies. And, you know, he like, if he comes to something they didn't know, because we had a lot of meltdowns because of that. They're like, I don't know what even this is. What's a decimale? I don't know. And like, you haven't learned it yet. It's fine. But he like was just like, you know what? I might not know this yet, but I will learn it. And so he was literally saying those, like I got goosebumps. Like he was literally saying those words to himself as he's testing. And I'm like, that is because everyone around him and our culture is just so strong with, if you don't know it, it's okay. You don't need to have this pressure on you that this is it. You know, you've got to be okay with being not okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really, really great. I had another question for you, Sarah, because I wanted to give you a chance to brag about Stephanie or about any of the data that you have seen in your work.
Don't do that.
When Marlena came to me and said that I was going to be on this and you'd asked me to pick one, my brain instantly went to Stephanie, because I was just like, you know what? She is always with it when it comes to the data and like breaking it down, looking at the standards, looking at the kids. She's very good about, you know, sorting those exit tickets in the moment and doing the lessons. And then you can see from what she's done in that it just, her kids grow so much by the end of the year. And it's always disheartening when you see your PM2 stuff and you're like, they could have done better, but really they don't know very much. We've only been in school for 3 months.
Right.
So it's nice to see and like have those conversations and just her be so open about it. And I just think that that's a great positive quality.
That's fantastic.
Hey.
Stephanie, what would you like to say? How has Sarah's how has she impacted you as a teacher?
Oh, she does all the things. And like I said, like she's a huge part of like how our culture is at our school is so open to data. I've only ever worked in Title I or TZ schools like in my entire career. And this is the first school where everybody has been so like the data's not a gotcha. Like,
right.
You know, you have where your admin or the coaches bring you the data and they're like, why did this happen? Like, why did this kid score that? It's not like that. Mm-hmm. She's so open to analyzing the data. And if we do discuss it, like we said, we're discussing the kid as a whole. And we all know our students. And it's just, I really like working at my school.
I think that's amazing. Okay, so we're going to finish up with a little lightning round. We call this we're going to ask you some this or that questions. All right, Stephanie, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
All right, you ready? Okay. Coffee or tea?
I drink ice water in the morning like a psychopath.
Psychopath. That's amazing.
That's crazy.
I feel like you answered this one, but hands-on activities or digital tools? This is all for you.
This is for you.
Stephanie, get on. Yeah.
Oh, I'm more of a digital tool.
Oh, digital tools. Okay, awesome. Project-based learning or quick daily tasks?
Quick daily tasks.
Okay. Digital tracking or old-fashioned roster and clipboard?
Both.
Both. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What about chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Very good. Very good.
You ready for your turn, Sarah?
Oh, yep.
All right. Messy desk or clean desk?
So my desk is super messy, but I know where everything is. But if it was a kid, clean desk.
Email or phone call?
Email, for sure.
Bar graph or pie chart?
Bar graph.
Same. Tracking growth or proficiency?
Growth.
Oh, pen or pencil?
Growth is always goal.
Pen or pencil?
Pen.
Math girl.
Is it math girl? Yeah, that's different. Okay.
I like the different colors.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for being part of this. This was a great discussion. I want to thank my co-host, Heather. And I would like to invite everyone to tune in next time for more aha moments.